Don't break these rules on a cruise, or you could end up in a locked room under the ship with security watching your every move. That's not an exaggeration. Cruise jail is real, and passengers end up there more often than you'd think. One wrong decision and your dream vacation becomes a nightmare. Ready to avoid disaster? In this video, we're exposing the top 11 mistakes that can actually get you thrown in cruise jail, or worse, kicked off the ship completely. You'll learn how guests end up detained just for sneaking a vape, why arguing with crew can cost you your entire vacation, and which common jokes are taken very seriously at sea. These are real rules cruise lines rarely explain, but trust us, security knows them by heart. So if you want to cruise smarter, stay safe, and never spend a night behind a locked cabin door, keep watching. It always starts the same way. A guest steps out onto their balcony at night, lights up a cigarette or vape, and assumes they're being discreet. But what they don't realize is that cruise ships have some of the most sensitive smoke detection systems on the planet, and a single puff in the wrong place can set off a silent alarm directly to ship security. In fact, several passengers have been detained after smoking in non-designated areas, even if they never saw a no smoking sign. Here's why it's so serious. Cruise ships are floating cities powered by massive engines, loaded with fuel, and surrounded by flammable materials. A fire at sea is one of the most dangerous emergencies a crew can face, and the margin for error is razor thin. That's why even lighting a cigarette in the wrong location, like your private balcony, cabin, or hallway, can get you reported, investigated, and placed under watch. On some lines, repeated violations mean being banned from smoking entirely. On others, you might find yourself in the onboard brig while the captain decides what to do. The fix is easy. Know the designated smoking areas on your ship and stick to them 100%. Most cruise lines provide clearly marked zones, often near open decks or lounges where smoking is allowed. If you vape, treat it the same way. Most ships don't differentiate. Don't test the boundaries, because if security catches you once, they'll be watching you twice. And if you think smoking is the only harmless behavior that can get you locked up, wait until you hear what happens when passengers start joking about bombs at the security check. It might seem like a joke. You're at the security scanner, tossing your bag onto the conveyor, and you casually say something like, "Don't worry, no bombs in there." But on a cruise ship, that single sentence can change everything. Within seconds, security steps in, you're pulled aside, your bag is taken, and suddenly your innocent joke turns into an official threat assessment. Even if you're laughing, the crew won't be. Cruise security treats all verbal threats, even sarcastic ones, as real until proven otherwise. That includes comments about weapons, explosives, or even vague threats of violence. And since you're technically on international waters governed by maritime law, there's no room for gray areas. Many cruise lines have a zero-tolerance policy, and making the wrong comment could lead to you being detained, interrogated, and disembarked at the next port without refund. Why is this taken so seriously? Because cruise ships are prime targets for international incidents, and security has to maintain control at all times. They don't know if you're joking or dangerous, and by the time they figure it out, it could be too late. So they treat everything as a real threat with real consequences. Your best move? Keep it light, respectful, and drama-free during security checks. Don't joke about weapons. Don't mention anything that sounds threatening. And definitely don't make light of safety procedures. You're not just being watched, you're being recorded, and one offhand comment could haunt you for the rest of the trip. But believe it or not, there's another passenger mistake that gets flagged even faster than joking about bombs, and this one happens right at the bar. Ready for the next red flag? It starts out like a typical vacation vibe. A few fruity cocktails by the pool, maybe a round of shots with your new cruise buddies at the bar. But fast forward 2 hours and you're slurring your words, stumbling through the hallway and arguing with a crew member about getting back to your room. Suddenly, your carefree day at sea turns into a full-blown security incident, and you're being escorted to a holding area, not a hot tub. Excessive drinking is one of the top ways passengers land themselves in cruise ship jail. Most cruise lines have clear alcohol policies that allow responsible consumption, but the minute you cross into aggressive, loud, or disorderly behavior, the ship's security team is authorized to step in. And if you get physical, start fights, or cause a scene, you're likely headed straight to the brig or worse, dropped off at the next port with no refund and no way home. Why does this matter so much? Because unlike land-based resorts, cruise ships can't just call the cops when things go south. The ship's safety is the crew's responsibility, and the last thing they need is a drunk passenger becoming a liability in the middle of the ocean. Plus, your behavior affects everyone on board. A single outburst can disrupt entertainment, delay port visits, or even trigger security drills. The solution is simple. Pace yourself, know your limit, alternate with water, and take breaks between drinks. If you're starting to feel buzzed, don't push it. And most importantly, never argue with staff. They'll document everything, and it only takes one incident report to end your trip early. But alcohol isn't the only liquid that can get you in trouble. Wait until you hear what happens when passengers try to sneak a certain bottle on board. It might seem like a harmless hack. You've seen the TikToks and Reddit threads, passengers slipping vodka into shampoo bottles or sneaking booze inside mouthwash containers. Some even go as far as sewing flasks into bras or stuffing mini bottles inside shoes. But if you try this trick and get caught, you're not just losing your liquor. You could be facing cruise detention, permanent blacklisting, or even criminal charges depending on the country you're sailing through. Cruise lines are extremely strict about bringing outside alcohol, and even more so with any kind of illegal substance. That's because they're operating under international maritime law, port laws, and their own corporate liability policies, and the security screening process is no joke. Bags are scanned, liquids are flagged, and if something looks off, you'll be pulled aside. Some cruise lines even conduct random cabin inspections, yes, even mid-cruise. Now here's the part most passengers don't realize. If you're caught sneaking alcohol, the cruise line reserves the right to confiscate it and place a note in your guest file. Do it again, you might be banned from ever sailing with them again. But if what you're hiding is something illegal, even a small amount of marijuana in a state or country where it's legal on land, you could be turned over to port authorities, fined, or arrested. Cruise ships don't follow local state laws. Once you're at sea, different rules apply. So how do you stay safe and still enjoy yourself? Simple. Know the cruise line's alcohol policy. Many allow 1 or 2 bottles of wine or champagne on board at embarkation, and drink packages can save you money if you plan to indulge. But don't risk it. The consequences are far worse than a dry day at sea. And just when you think you're safe in your own cabin, wait until you hear what happens if you start acting out in the hallways, especially after hours. It starts with a loud argument near the pool bar. A couple has clearly had 1 drink too many, and voices are rising. Passengers start filming. Then someone throws a drink. And just like that, what began as a verbal spat turns into a full-blown scene. Security is on the scene in seconds. The couple is separated, detained, and escorted off the deck. Within hours, they're no longer passengers. They're disembarked at the next port. Cruise ships are not the place to lose your cool. In fact, the rules at sea are often stricter than at land-based resorts. That's because cruise lines operate under maritime law and are responsible for maintaining order in a confined environment. Any behavior that threatens the peace, safety, or enjoyment of others can be considered grounds for removal. That includes drunkenness, yelling, fighting, harassment, or even just creating a scene in a public space. It doesn't matter how minor it feels to you. If the crew deems it disruptive, you're in trouble. The consequences can be severe. You might be confined to your cabin under ship arrest. In more serious cases, you can be disembarked early, left at a foreign port to find your own way home. And if authorities get involved, things can escalate quickly into actual criminal charges depending on the jurisdiction. Your best defense: keep it cool. Know your limits when drinking. Avoid confrontations, even if someone else is pushing your buttons. And if things feel like they're getting tense, walk away and alert a crew member. Cruise staff are trained to de-escalate situations, but once you cross a certain line, even they can't protect you from the consequences. And don't think being in your room keeps you safe either. The next mistake could get you in trouble while you're asleep. The next mistake could get you in trouble while you're asleep. It seems innocent enough. You leave your cabin door cracked open while waiting for a friend. Maybe you even wedge it with a towel so you don't have to keep unlocking it. But what you may not realize is that this one small habit could lead to a serious security risk and possibly a call from ship security. Cruise ships operate under strict fire safety and security regulations. Leaving your door open, even for a few minutes, can interfere with automatic fire containment systems. Cabin doors are built to seal tightly in the event of smoke or fire. If your door is left propped open and something goes wrong on your deck, even a minor incident, investigators may trace the breach back to your room. That alone can result in a formal warning or even confinement if it's part of a pattern. It doesn't end there. Open doors are also a security risk. Theft is rare on cruise ships, but not impossible. An open cabin is an open invitation to opportunists. If something goes missing and you left the door unattended or unlocked, your travel insurance may not cover the loss. And if there are complaints from other passengers, for example, if music is blaring from your room while the door is wide open, that adds another strike against your name. The fix? Simple. Keep your cabin door closed and locked unless you're actively entering or exiting. If you're waiting on someone, use the peephole or sit inside with the door shut. Need to chat with a neighbor? Meet them in the hallway, not halfway, in your room. It keeps you safe, and it keeps you off the cruise radar. But now, let's talk about a mistake that happens before you even step on the ship, and it's one that some passengers still don't recover from. It starts as a joke. A younger passenger wants to order a drink and flashes a fake ID, thinking no one will check too closely. Or maybe someone signs a form using a false birth date to bypass excursion age limits. What they don't realize is that cruise lines are not like nightclubs or casual events on land. Everything on a cruise ship is logged, tracked, and tied to your official government-issued ID. And falsifying anything, even something small, can lead to serious consequences. Here's the cold truth. Using a fake ID or giving false information on a cruise ship is considered fraud under maritime law. It doesn't matter if you're trying to sneak a drink, avoid a fee, or qualify for something you technically shouldn't. If you get caught, and many do, you're now on a list. Cruise security will flag your onboard account, and depending on the offense, you may be removed at the next port. Some passengers have even been permanently banned from sailing with the cruise line again, and that's just the start. If the falsification involves anything related to safety, like medical conditions or emergency contact info, you could also be liable if something goes wrong. Imagine someone needing assistance mid-cruise only for the crew to realize their provided information was false or outdated. Now the situation becomes not just dangerous, it becomes a legal nightmare. The fix is clear. Always use your real information. If you're underage, don't try to drink. If you don't meet the requirement for an activity, ask the staff if there's an alternative option. Cruise lines would rather help you find a solution than punish you, but only if you play by the rules. Now let's head to the dining room because the next mistake isn't illegal, but it is a guaranteed way to land in serious trouble with the staff and your fellow cruisers. You just grabbed a slice of pizza from the pool deck or picked up a sandwich at the buffet. You're running late to dinner in the main dining room, so you carry it with you, thinking no one will mind. But the moment you step through the doors, you're met with stares from staff, and not the friendly kind. A waiter approaches and politely, but firmly tells you outside food isn't allowed. You're embarrassed, confused, and suddenly feel like the rules are way stricter than you expected. And they are. Cruise ships treat the main dining room like a formal restaurant, not a cafeteria. Every dish, every course, and every plate is tracked and prepared according to health codes, allergen control, and presentation standards. When you bring outside food into that controlled environment, you're not just breaking etiquette, you're violating health and safety policies. The kitchen staff doesn't know what's in your food, how long it's been sitting out, or whether it could trigger a contamination issue for another passenger. Plus, there's a deeper reason cruise lines care so much. Bringing food in from other parts of the ship sends a message. I don't like what you're serving. That disrupts the flow of service and makes it harder for your wait staff to do their job. On some cruises, passengers who repeatedly bring outside items to the dining room are quietly flagged and spoken to by management, or, in extreme cases, told to use only the buffet for future meals. The fix is simple. If you're not hungry for what's on the dining room menu, either eat beforehand or wait until after. You can always request alternatives from your waiter. They'd rather accommodate you than have to confront you. And trust me, starting dinner off with tension is not the vibe you want. Coming up next, the one thing you should never film or photograph on a cruise, unless you want security watching your every move. It starts with something small. Maybe you're filming your dinner, vlogging your trip, or recording a funny moment on deck. Suddenly, a crew member walks into frame and you keep rolling. But then you spot a confrontation nearby. Maybe a guest is being escorted away or security is handling a dispute, and you zoom in thinking, this will make great content. Within seconds, a second staff member approaches and asks what you're doing. If you keep filming, things escalate fast. What felt like innocent footage can get you pulled aside, questioned, and even detained. Why? Because filming crew members, especially security personnel, is one of the fastest ways to get flagged by the ship's legal and safety teams. Cruise lines treat privacy and internal security seriously, and with good reason. Ships operate under international maritime law, and filming staff without consent can lead to legal complications, crew discomfort, and privacy violations. In many cases, security footage from passengers has ended up online, sparking backlash, lawsuits, or breaches of contract. That's why some cruise lines now have policies stating that recording crew or other guests during altercations is grounds for removal or detention. You may even be asked to delete footage, and refusing to do so could mean your phone or camera is temporarily confiscated. Even casual recording during safety briefings, port procedures, or customs inspections is off-limits. You're not just documenting your trip. You're potentially capturing sensitive operations that cruise lines are required to keep private. So, what's the solution? Keep your camera focused on yourself, your friends, and the views. If something serious happens near you, don't record it. Report it. And if a crew member asks you to stop filming, do it immediately. Because the next clip you upload might not be a vacation memory, it might be Exhibit A. Next, we'll cover a surprisingly common mistake involving cabin doors and how a late-night prank could get you locked up. It sounds harmless. You and your friends are walking the hallways after midnight, laughing, maybe a little tipsy. One of you knocks on a random cabin door and runs. Another hides behind a corner and yells something absurd.
Ever wonder
you record
what
it,
really goes
post
on
it to
behind
your
those
story,
polished cruise
and
ship
move on.
hallways?
No harm
It's not-
done, right? Wrong. The next morning, security is reviewing footage, and instead of laughs, you're looking at a formal written warning, or worse, temporary detention in cruise jail. Because on a cruise ship, harmless fun after hours is a serious breach of conduct. Unlike a hotel, a cruise ship isn't just a place to stay. It's a self-contained floating city with strict codes of behavior. Late-night disruptions, especially ones targeting random passengers or staff, fall under the category of harassment. Even something as simple as knocking on multiple doors or leaving prank notes can be interpreted as guest intimidation. And once someone files a complaint, security doesn't take it lightly. Surveillance footage, key card logs, and even witness statements are used to identify and reprimand offenders. And if your prank involves touching someone's cabin door handle, using ship phones to make anonymous calls, or pretending to be crew, it escalates fast. Cruise security has full authority to detain guests for causing a disturbance, especially if it affects sleep, safety, or the overall passenger experience. And don't forget, if your prank is filmed and shared online, that's digital evidence with your face and timestamp attached. The fix is simple. Treat every hallway like someone's home. Keep noise down, respect private space, and save the laughs. For public decks, because one night of messing around can lead to being flagged for security risk and possibly removed at the next port. And finally, there's one mistake more dangerous than all the rest, because it crosses an international legal line, and it's the quickest way to get cuffed at sea. It always starts the same way. A curious passenger wanders past a door marked "Crew Only," sees no one watching, and slips inside for a quick peek. Maybe they're looking for a shortcut. Maybe they just want to see what's behind the scenes. But a few minutes later, they're being escorted by security, questioned, and in some cases placed in confinement. Why? Because stepping into unauthorized areas isn't just breaking a rule. It's violating international maritime safety laws. Cruise ships are like floating cities. And just like you wouldn't walk into a hospital surgery wing or a pilot's cockpit, there are entire zones on board that are restricted for very real reasons. These areas may contain sensitive equipment, emergency systems, or be part of security operations. Unauthorized access poses a safety risk, not only to you, but to the entire vessel. Even worse, during high-alert periods, entering crew areas can trigger lockdowns or force the ship's security team to report the incident to authorities at the next port. And no, claiming you were just curious won't save you. Some passengers have ended up detained or disembarked early just for opening a door they weren't supposed to. Cruise lines do not play around with boundary violations, and surveillance cameras are always watching. The fix is simple. If it says "crew only," treat it like a locked vault. Stay out no matter how tempting or empty it looks. Want to see what goes on behind the scenes? Book a ship-sponsored behind-the-scenes tour instead. They exist, and they're guided safely. Curiosity might not kill the cat, but on a cruise ship, it could get you kicked off. Thanks for sticking with us through all the cruise mistakes that could land you in real trouble or worse, in cruise jail. Now you know what to avoid, what not to say, and exactly how serious the crew takes your safety. If you learned something new today, drop a comment and type, "I cruise smart," so we know you're one of the savvy ones. We read every single one. Click right here for the next video. Until then, sail safe, follow the rules, and enjoy your vacation, not the inside of the ship's holding.